So independent and dependent variables. Again, independent variable is the input. What goes into my math problem? What I'm substituting in. In and in. Independent is the input. It's the x. It's what goes in. The dependent variable is the output. It's the answer. It's the result. It's the final outcome. It's the y, or it's the f of x, the function of x. And again, it's one of those things that you kind of have to talk yourself through it. You have to talk yourself through identifying all right, so let's talk. Let's identify independent and dependent. So I'll put I for independent, and I'll put D for dependent. So first off, let's identify what we're comparing. It says, in winter, more electricity is used when the temperature goes down. What are we comparing? What are the two things that are changing in this problem? Temperature and electricity. Those are the two things that are going to change, right? So, we have to think about it. And you have to kind of talk to yourself through it. What goes into my problem resulting in, so we talked about, we're comparing temperature and electricity. We're comparing our temperature and our electricity. Those are the two things that are changing on a day-to-day basis. Someday I'll connect back to this. I'm comparing temperature to electricity. So you have to ask yourself, am I putting in electricity and getting out the temperature? Or am I putting in the temperature and getting the amount of electricity as my answer? What is going in and what is coming out? What do you think, Madison? Correct. The temperature outside is what goes in. Independent things, if you think about a person who is independent, they're the things you can't control, right? I can't control the temperature outside. I mean, I wish I could. Right? I can't control that. But the temperature outside is controlling, is going in, and it's telling me how much electricity I'm going to use. The temperature is the independent, the electricity is the dependent. So let's identify again independent and dependent. We're comparing two things. Looking at this story, the cost of shipping a package is based on its weight. What are the two items that I am comparing? Maddie, yes? What am I doing?
The weight and the cost.
Perfect. The cost and the weight. And you're trying to determine what goes in and out. What goes in to create my answer? What do I put into the problem? And what's my solution and my final answer? What goes into the problem to determine the answer, Sierra?
The weight is in the
Perfect. The weight determines the cost. Or you could reverse it. Some people going backwards makes more sense. You could say the cost depends on the weight. So the cost is dependent on the weight. You kind of just have to figure out the way that it works the best for you. Then we can take it in even a step further. I can do independent, I can do dependent, and then I can make an equation for it if I have values, which now I'm getting into not just a lawyer's fee, right? So on top of this, in here, I don't have the words to compare anymore. But I do know that the answer is going to be your bill. Correct? How much you owe them. That's your answer. If I'm going to a lawyer, I'm going to have to end up paying them in the end, right? That's what all this talk is about. So what determines, what tells me how much my bill is? What in this is my variable, Adam, that determines my bill? Perfect, the number of hours. The number of hours. So my equation would be f of x equals, right, my answer, f of x, equals $250 an hour plus $75 as a retainer. Meaning, I go to the lawyer and I say, hey, I want you to represent me. I'm going to sue my students. They're going to say, okay, I'll take your case, but you give me $75 to reserve me. And then I'll charge you $250 every hour I work on it. Right? Really, per hour is probably a little high. I think most people, they bill in 15-minute increments. They charge you every 15 minutes they spend. Yeah. Mr. Long's job is a job where they bill clients when he works on things for them, and he bills in 15-minute increments.
He's rich?
Well, I mean, he doesn't bill $250 an hour, or 15 minutes.
It could happen.
I mean, it could. Maybe I'll tell him. I'll say, Sierra says you need to bill $250 every 15 minutes. And it's not like they give him the money. His company gets the money. All right, let's try this one. Admission is $8, and each ride is $1.50. What do I put in, and what do I get out? What goes into the problem? What comes out as my answer? Well, in the end of this day, I will have spent money. Is that true? So, the cost, right? Usually my answer is the amount of money that I spend. Story of my life. Bless you. So what goes in? What's changing? What's different for each person that goes to this fair or this carnival? Or what is the thing that you can control? Because I can tell you, if I was with my mom as a child, she'd be like, nope, can't do it. We'd be the 0 people. But there are some people that they get to change it and they get to do 10 of them, right? Zaya, what do you get? What goes in? Yeah, so what's my independent variable up here?
Admission and ride.
Not admission. Admission's the same for everybody. The thing that we can control, right? The thing that is determined, right? The piece that is independent for each other, right? Is one ride is $1.50. Can I pick how many rides I go on?
Yeah.
But the ride is $1.50. If you go on 2 rides, you're gonna spend, right? Number of rides. 1 ride is $1.50. I can't control how much money a ride is. I can control how many rides I go on. So cost, right, is going to be determined. It's going to change for everybody by the number of rides you purchase. Changes the cost, right? The price of the ride doesn't change. That's stuck. But you can determine the cost, the final outcome, by how many times you go on a ride. What's my equation look like? F of x equals 1.5 150x plus 8. All right, the number of rides I purchase determines the cost. The cost depends on the number of rides.